Good afternoon, everyone. 4 o'clock straight up on a Wednesday edition of On Cue. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. 2 hours to play with on this Woosah Wednesday. We'll take it right up to 6 o'clock straight up on this absolutely nasty, rainy day up and down the East Coast on this 24th of September, 2025. Get in on the conversation. You can tweet at me. Pretty easy to do, at Rich Q on Q. Get social with me on X and IG, and of course TikTok, Rich Q. And I'm like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Rich Q on Q. Very busy show. Costco in about 20 on college football. Lloyd Vance in a 5 o'clock hour, and of course you guys out there on, as we deem it, a Woosah Wednesday, which typically is designed to see how fast my skin cracks on the air. Now, I will start because there's wonderful pennant races heating up in baseball. You've got college football, but yeah, let's get right into it. The NFL. And obviously, traveling yesterday, the news came down, the reports that Jackson Dart was finally going to get the start for the New York Football Giants. And this is something that I've been preaching to the choir. I've said this for how long now? I actually bookmarked the New Orleans Saints game after I saw what transpired Sunday night by Russell Wilson and that offense. It had to be done. It had to be done. And I know there's going to be this sentiment of the Giant fan today that believe that this is a panic move by the organization. That why now? What's the point of starting this kid 3 weeks into the football season when you could have done it in week one? You could have made this announcement, competition and training camp. I mean, there's so many layers to unpack with this move that was announced by Brian Daboll, and apparently he called it. This was his call. Really didn't give you too much on why he's doing this now when it comes to the play of one Russell Wilson. But for me, as a Giant fan, I know there's this sink or swim mentality, and I think the Giant fan are looking at this in two lanes. Smart move to start or not, panic move, but yet had to be done. And I believe whether it's a panic move or not, I mean, the way they found out is ridiculous on Twitter, which is just embarrassing, but that's the friggin', first-class organization that is the New York Football Giants. I think there is such a disconnect right now in this franchise, okay? I think there is such a disconnect, and you've got an 0-3 team that had a poor performance on Sunday night against a beatable Kansas City team. Look, if Jackson Dart or Jameis Winston are starting that game, I don't care. They're throwing the ball against Spags' defense. Russell Wilson, the series, the red zone, that, late possession where he threw it away, threw it in the tunnel, threw it in the swamp, threw it off 16W, threw it off the Parkway. That pretty much spelled the end. And I told you guys this. It's one of the reasons I'm not a big proponent in buying in with bridge quarterbacks, because I don't believe they always play out. I don't believe that it's the best for an organization. And again, the questions over the next 24, 48 hours, has the kid, every coach and GM, when they have a young quarterback and they have a rookie quarterback, they want to say, we want to see if he checks the boxes. If he checks the boxes, that tells us he's ready to go. So there's two plausible scenarios and situations here. So going to Dart makes sense because this head coach is 3-17 since last season. And you desperately need a spark down the stretch. He's not saving his job. He's just not. He's not. But I believe, like what happens with young quarterbacks in the NFL, when head coaches are trying to save their ass, there's always going to be a disconnect and a difference of opinion within the building, within the locker room. And I believe this is just me. This is just what I surmise. knowing what I know from Brian Daboll and how this giant organization operates, I believe that Daboll wanted to start Jackson Dart from the get-go. That's just my gut. I have, no former players, no one within. It's just my gut, and I believe that that causes friction from the GM to the ownership group, right? Because now the owner wants to sign off on it, even though the head coach should have carte blanche, but he's actually going to bring the GM into the conversation. So now you've got a head coach that's on the hot seat. And he's basically saying to himself, all right, Jackson, listen, you're my sword. I'm going to live by the sword. I'm going to die by the sword. And again, my only issue with this is you sign Russell Wilson in the offseason and Jameis Winston, not knowing what you're going to do in the draft. And then obviously Jackson Dart, he's there and he's available, so you trade down for him. Okay, fine. Then you should have just said at that point, let me take all the snaps. Here we go. But instead during training camp, what did we hear? Moonball Russell Wilson letting it cook with Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson. So why didn't you guys just split the reps? And it's going to be sink or swim. And I'm sorry if that's going to be too harsh. Now, again, the question is, well, how quickly do you put this kid in? It's like any conversation with rookie quarterbacks in the NFL. If we're checking these boxes, so be it. So you want to tell me that in 3 weeks, Jackson Dart checked all the boxes? Look, this is clearly a move by a head coach that understands he is flat out on borrowed time. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts here. He realizes that. So it's like, you know what? If I'm going to die, I'm going to die with my friggin' boots on, man. The issue I have is whether Dart sinks or swim, there's absolutely, I'm sorry, there's no rhyme or reason, no way I want to see Brian Daboll going forward. And here's the other problem. The fact that he came out and said he's going to be the starter for the rest of the season, you can't go back. You can't. You can't go back. So again, you talk about a guy like Winston, you sign him prior to the draft. And then, again, maybe you land your guy in the draft. And if you don't, you have that competition between Winston and Russell Wilson. But it wasn't, you had two veteran guys well past their prime. And Russell Wilson, he's on the back nine of his career. But what stood out to me is that game against Kansas City. If that's Jackson Dart or, Crab Legs, my guy, Jameis Winston, they're going to throw it to the Chiefs. And listen, you got to figure out a way to get the ball to your best player, period. So you want to talk about the quarterback's unwillingness to throw the ball down the field. You want to talk about the offensive line. You want to talk about the scheme. You want to talk about the play calling, whatever. But when you go back and you watch that game and you see what the Giants do offensively, explain this to me. Your game plan, you're talking about these routes, right? So let's go. Have them run some go routes, some hitches. And again, you're doing that though. You're having them do that in a too deep zone, which you don't do. If that's the case, give them some end arounds. Figure out a way to move him in space. That just doesn't make sense. The game plan is when you have him running routes and hitches in too deep zone, that tells me everything I need to know. Kafka, the offensive coordinator and the head coach, they're clueless. They're clueless. So it does go to play calling, period. Period. But I will say this, whether he's trying to save his ass or not, which I believe he is, it had to be done. It had to be done. Kevin C. in North Jersey, Kevin C. in Jackson chiming in Q. This is flat out a panic move, even though you've been preaching since day one. You have to see what you have. You have to. You have to. You have to. If you're going to, it's like, okay, you're going to rearrange the chairs on the Titanic. What difference does it make? It's sinking. What difference does it make? The ship is sinking. You need a spark. I don't know what this kid's going to look like on Sunday against the Chargers. And if they lose and he plays well, at least you've got something to hang your hat on. If they lose and he struggles, okay, there's no panic. Rookies are supposed to make mistakes. Here's the game against New Orleans that has a horrible coaching staff and roster. If the Giants go on the road and lose that game, I know Giant fans don't want to hear this, But I can see that coach being fired. And the likelihood of the coach and GM being fired at the same time is slim to none. The GM's probably going to get a pass, but the coach is gone. The coach is gone. Star chimes in Delaware. Q, I just don't get this. What did the kid do in 3 weeks to make it show that he's a starter? It's not the point. It's not the point. They're an 0-3 team, along with, as de facto points out, Saints, Jets, Titans, right? And the Giants. Those are the bottom. And then obviously we got the top, which we'll get into with Lloyd in the 5 o'clock hour. But when you're 0-3, you got to give the fan base something. Look, did he make this move because the fan base was clamoring? And you can't go to Winston, because if you start Winston and then all of a sudden Jackson Dart comes in for a series of package plays, again, there's going to be cheers. You take him out, there's going to be boos. You don't want that nonsense. You don't. At this point, I'm almost resigned to the fact, let me see what the kid has. And I would be doing a 180. It would be a contradiction. I would sound like a hypocrite, because I kept telling you, I told you this in the offseason, Russell Wilson is done. Jameis Winston's not the answer. You drafted this kid to play. The difference was with Daniel Jones, it was a reach. And remember, here's the difference. And Marty chimes in, Q, what about loyalty? Look what Russell Wilson has done throughout his entire career. You throw that shit out the window. With all due respect, Marty. You throw it out the window, and I'm going to tell you why. I had a lot of people message me and tweet at me, this is just like what the Giants did with Eli and Daniel Jones. No, it's not. It's not even remotely close. Eli struggled against Buffalo. And I remember, again, the only, talking head at that time basically said that, hey, man, the Bills just ended Eli's career. It was Adam Shine. He said the Bills will end Eli's career. And they did. I mean, for all intents and purposes, they benched him, right? And then Daniel Jones came in. But you're talking about an Eli Manning, an iconic franchise figure, right? An iconic franchise figure, a beloved figure. Now you're trying to compare that to Russell Wilson, and I got news for you. Who the hell in the organization has ties to Russell Wilson? Nobody does. Nobody in the Giant organization has ties to Russell Wilson. And it's not really about, Russell Wilson was struggling. Russell Wilson turned back the clock and gave you a nice moment. But you knew at the end of the day, you were going to get more Russell Wilson in Denver and Pittsburgh than in Seattle in his prime. So it makes sense. It makes sense to bench him. But my thought is, why'd you even sign the guy in the first place? I wish more coaches had the guts to make a quarterback move when they have young draft picks. I'd rather go for the higher ceiling player and roll the dice for greatness. You never know until they play. Listen, you and I, Heat 12 man, right? We don't agree on much, but I agree with you. You have no idea what you're going to get from Jackson Dart. He might stink. He might be good. He might play like a rookie, which means turning the ball over in a couple minutes, give you a flash, and then in the next moment, turn the ball over. But you live with it. The excitement, the buzz. Franchises who believe they have the guy in the building, the fan base clamors to see them sooner rather than later. Look, first-round draft pick, different in Cleveland, 4th and 5th or 5th and 6th-round draft pick with a veteran in Flacco. But there's buzz in Cleveland because they won the game, but they know Joe Flacco is not the answer. They want to see what one of these young quarterbacks can potentially do. So if Stefanski and Berry believe their job's on the hot seat, they want to win games, figure out who gives you the best chance. In this situation, Daboll knows he's done. He is a dead man walking. He's got to figure out a way to build up a little charity at this point. And he hasn't been able to do that because he had the nice first season as a rookie head coach. They won on the road, go for 2 against the Titans. They won on the road. They beat the Vikings in a playoff game. They gave Daniel Jones $160-40 million guaranteed, and it blew up in their face. And that's also partly on Mara. But I can also go through the list of some of these contracts, i.e., that they signed over the year with Gettleman, and then prior to Shane, Kenny Galladay. Hello? Are you kidding me? Look at the money they gave some of these guys over the years. Singletary, Gano, who's on the IR. I mean, they royally screwed up. When you talk about the financials, they royally screwed up with some of these contracts, and it set them back. So I want to see what the kid has. I want to see how the kid looks, and I'm just going to go and just on surface value, just enjoy it and see if he can play a little bit, because the expectation is he will struggle. He will struggle. Tom chimes in from what do we got? Tom in Freehold chimes in. Q, I was listening to Fan the other day, and I can't believe what they were actually saying. They think this is a flat out panic move by Daboll. Now you're sitting here, and I appreciate your opinion. You're telling me it's not a panic move; it's a smart move. Why? Because it's a smart move in this regard, and quite frankly, I don't care what they're saying on the Fan. It's not a panic move. It is by definition, because everyone in the building knows that Brian Daboll's job is not safe. So if you want to label it a panic move, fine. But if Jackson Dart plays well, then the conversation is going to be, how come the kid didn't start from day one and we could have won a couple games and it could be a meaningful season? Like, I don't believe Brian Daboll is that smart, right? With all due respect. But I also believe there's some rhyme or reason to this. You need a spark. You need to give the fan base something to be happy about. It's a hard move to make when you're married to an all-time great franchise quarterback. They're not in Russell Wilson. Great quarterback. You can argue Hall of Fame quarterback. But again, man, it had to be made. It's a move that you can decipher it, you can debate it, you can dissect it. The only questions that are really are the reasoning behind it, which really no one's ever going to know except Brian Daboll, who gave him truth serum. That's number one. And the fact why now after 3 weeks, because you're 0-3. You're 0-3 and you're staring down the barrel of a 1-6 start. So what difference does it make if it's week 4 or week 7? I mean, it's just, and I'll throw you this too. I know they mentioned, Russ doesn't want to get released or traded. I joked, a week ago? Trade him to Cincinnati. Now all of a sudden rumors are coming out. Cincinnati might call up the Giants for Russell Wilson. So sometimes I might, again, look like a goofball with some of the stuff, right? Sammy Boy chimes in. Q, did you see Shane's son tweeting about? Yeah, I don't care about that either. I don't care about that. The GM's on the hot seat. The head coach is on the hot seat, period. That's it. That's it. Win some freaking football games. I mean, the fan base is not asking for a lot. You weren't going to win football games with this quarterback. You just weren't. Win football games. Give them something. You got a young team, a young roster. Again, I told you, this kid starts. You can go back to the tape. I said it last week. The kid starts when they feel the line is solidified with Thomas. Well, Thomas played well the other night. They feel the line solidified. Ravens and Chiefs, best potential 1-3 games ever, regardless of who wins. That both teams still make playoffs. Even the Q is writing off Mahomes. I am. It's Heisman. Q was Hunter's merch tag for his Heisman campaign last year. Well, I don't know what you're talking about, Heat 12, man. What do you got, a little layup in you, a little smoking and joking? By the way, how about your guy, Hunter? They're going to, try to incorporate him in somehow? So if Dart goes on a run and Stefanski sticks with Flacco, how bad does that make him look? Well, more importantly, it's not every situation in franchise is different. Now, I'll do you one better. How bad does it look that Daniel Jones is playing well in Indianapolis? Is that not an indictment on Brian Daboll? Right? Is something to be said about coaching? There's something to be said about it. Change of scenery. Stick him out of New York. Get rid of that blue. Stick him in the Indianapolis with the horseshoe, and the kid's playing like an all-pro, an MVP. There's no rhyme or reason to it, guys. None. You try to figure it out, and you can't. A lot of comments coming in. We're going to hold off for a couple moments because we want to switch gears. And, we like to, it's a Wednesday. It's a Woosah Wednesday. So, again, I try to not get worked up. That's number one. But you guys know on a Wednesday, we get. I was about to capture him with the double. But we always go for the savings. We always go for the savings. We welcome in our good friend from On Three Sports. I saw the double buy and the yawn leaning back in the queue room.
No, I just gotta make sure I'm all stretched out. You know what I mean? I've been sitting in this chair all day.
I mean, well, when you're Pulitzer Prize winning sports writer, columnist, blogger, if you
I
will.
don't know about that. I don't know.
Well,
You
me
know,
neither.
you
What's going on, my friend? How are you?
two-time broadcaster of the year finalist. That's about as good as I can get right now. So, doing
Yeah,
good,
but at
doing
least,
well, doing well.
but hold on a second. At least you don't have, in your bio from like 2006.
Well, of course. I mean, I think I was 10 in 2006. If math serves correctly, I think I was the best broadcaster in my household when I was
Nice,
practicing on the
nice.
Madden on the video games. That's a good job out of me. So 3-2 last week, Q. So we were doing well.
Yeah, I do want to ask you because you do obviously with college football.
Mhm.
What do you make of the Giants going to Dart?
I think this is something that we anticipated. When from a college perspective, when you look at Jackson Dart, I think you look at probably one of the most productive quarterbacks we've seen in a while, or at least the ones that are within their rookie year, or if not like their second year already in the NFL. The past couple of quarterback classes, I like Dart most. I should say a little bit more than most. I would say. Thought he was a good pick for the Giants. Obviously with the whole Shadur Sanders thing that happened during the draft, it was obviously very surprising initially, but then as it kind of rolled on, you're like, all right, Dart's gonna be the first guy off the board at that point. To me, it's just Brian Dable and Joe Shane saving their job. I think unless he comes out right away where he's very productive, as we've seen rookie quarterbacks in the past, a la a Jaden Daniels, maybe just from last year.
Mhm,
If
mhm.
I would say, unless he's playing at that type of level where this team is going to win, 9 games somehow and get into the playoffs.
Which they're not.
I'm not talking about Washington last year where they had more pieces around Jaden
Sure.
Daniels and made it to the NFC Championship game, but if this team somehow wins, what are they, 0-3? So if they somehow go, 9-5 down the stretch, they make the playoffs, and he is, lighting it up, and he's going to be in the Rookie of the Year conversation. This is pretty much just a face saving job here by Brian Dable and Joe Shane. I really don't think Jackson Dart is necessarily set up for success with this organization with those two guys in charge right now. Now I could be wrong. Now, and if he has a season like I just described where they win and they go 9-5 and he plays really well, they're going to save their jobs, and maybe it's like, okay, maybe this does work, and maybe Dable is the right guy for the
Th-
job. But
They're
based on
not.
the past couple of years, Q, I don't think Dable and Shane are cut out for this with the Giants right now. I think Dart could be cut out for it, but I do like his intangibles, his moxie, his gamesmanship. I like Dart from that perspective. Plus, he obviously came from a pro style offense from Lane Kiffin. So I think that sets up for success. But as far as the future is concerned, I think Dable and Shane are just biding time right now.
Yeah, Dable's gone. And to your point, I don't care if they win games. I just want to see if the kid can play.
Yeah,
Right
I,
at
I
the
think
end.
he can. I think he
Yeah.
can.
All right. We got the picks. We got
Yes,
the
sir.
picks. What'd you do last week? How are your
Three and
numbers?
two, as I just alluded to. So back-to-back 3-2 weeks.
Getting a
Took
little
a took a
juice.
took a bad loss with Utah and Texas Tech. I have a Texas Tech, by the way. Will Hammond
How
coming in
about
at
Illinois and
quarterback.
Indiana?
Yeah. Oh, that one was way off. So my two picks were, my two losses last week were horrendous. Texas Tech waxed Utah in Utah, by the way, with a backup quarterback. Will Hammond might even be better than Baron Morton for all we know, coming in for the injury. And then Indiana. I mean, they must have called the dogs off. They could have put up 80 in that
Yeah,
game. It was
Illinois spit the bit in
ridiculous.
that one. I mean
I didn't see that coming at all.
I mean, what was it? They put up 56.
It was 63-10 was the final score.
Oh,
I mean, and again, I said it in a tweet the other day. I was like, I was dead wrong on two things for the first third of the season. I didn't take Oklahoma seriously. They're for real. Now things have changed because John Mateer is now going to be out for probably around 3 weeks because of the hand injury. And he had surgery this week, so that could change things. But I was dead wrong on the fact that Indiana was not going to replicate what they did last year. I thought they would be good, but I didn't think they were going to be this good. And I figured Illinois was the team this year to be this year's Indiana. But as we said all week, this year's Indiana is still Indiana.
All right, let's rip through these bad boys. Top ranked Ohio State 3-0, taking on 3-0 Washington. By the way, interesting, right? So
Mhm.
opening earlier in the week, that was a 13-point favorite against Washington as of September 17th
Yeah.
over at FanDuel. Now it's dropped to 8.5, right? So
Mhm.
Ohio State had to bye during week 4. Washington beat Washington State, put up 59 points. Kind of interesting how that line has dropped. I still, again, I believe there's a reason Ohio State is number one,
Mhm.
but this is kind of my. I know we got a couple games to go through, but this is
Yeah.
my early look, but don't touch game. I think Washington's going to be able to keep this somewhat close. They might be down 17 and get a backdoor cover.
Yeah, that was the first thought I had where it was like maybe Ohio State's up by 13, 14 points, and you get a late touchdown from Washington with, I don't know, 45 seconds left, and you need like a miracle onside kick to, for them to even win. You know what I mean? So the backdoor cover comes into play there. But I just like the way Ohio State's been playing. They have that win over Texas. And again, that was a team, wherever you think about Texas, I mean, a lot of playoff projections, by the way, are actually dismissing Texas a lot right now, despite the fact that their only loss is to Ohio State. But Texas has a really good defense. But the fact that Ohio State outscored them there and the offense has kind of picked it up now. Julian Sain looks really comfortable at quarterback. You still have Jeremiah Smith, the best receiver in college football. How about Bo Jackson? Not the Bo Jackson, but a different Bo Jackson. He's been killing it. A couple 100-yard games on the ground for Ohio State at running back. So they found a new playmaker. Obviously, their defense is really good this year, too. I think Washington is banking on the fact that if they're not going to be able to slow down Ohio State, maybe they can keep up as the quarterback, Damon Williams, is pretty good so far this season. Jed Fish, year 2 under him at Washington seems to be, the vibes are a little bit higher than 2024. They're going to have a nice home atmosphere out there in Seattle. I don't know, 3:30 kickoff on Saturday, a little CBS action. I'm getting, channeling my inner doggy right now. But I just really think that Ohio State's too good. As you mentioned, they're the number one team in the country for a reason. And I just think seeing them through 3 weeks and beating Texas week 1, I'm like, yeah, they have a better chance to repeat as national champs than I thought initially. The 8.5, I'm not too worried about that right now. I feel like this is a 30-20 type of game they win on the road.
All right, you got a nice little SEC battle here. Number 4, LSU, they're 4-0. Number 13, Old Miss, 4-0. How about LSU getting 1.5? How about Lane Kiffin? You just kind of, we talked a little bit about that for a moment, and company
Mhm.
kind of rolling in that hot hand, right? We were wondering who's going to be the quarterback. I love this name, by the way, Trinidad Chambliss. I mean, here we go.
Yeah,
He's been on, yeah, he's played really really
and
well. I
it's
mean,
and, and it's
you
and it's
think
funny,
about the
Q.
wins over
Yeah.
Arkansas and Tulane, right? So
Mhm.
he's played well, 719 yards, couple touchdowns across 2 starts.
Yeah.
I think also doing a good job with his legs. That to me is kind of your X factor, and when you have the quarterback that's comfortable in the pocket but can take off and run.
Yeah, and I was gonna say it's funny because Austin Simmons was the greatest thing since sliced bread just a few weeks ago, and he gets banged up, and then you see Chambliss come in, and all of a sudden it's like, is he gonna, for the older audience here, for the educated audience, I should say, is he gonna get Wally pipped because he got hurt, and all of a sudden Trinidad Chambliss seems to be the real deal. I know Lane Kiffin made some
Could have
jokes.
said, does he get Drew Bledsoe?
Yeah, hey, that's even better for the younger generation. Is he get Drew Bledsoe? It's funny because Lane Kiffin went on Pat McAfee today and was they actually referred to our reported on 3 Chris Lowe. The great Chris Lowe is now with us, and Pete Nakos also reported that the fact that he's going to get Trinidad Chambliss is going to get the start again against LSU, and Lane Kiffin goes, well, you got to believe everything on Twitter. Obviously, if it's on Twitter, must be true, but Chambliss is playing really, really well. To your point, the fact that LSU's getting points on the road, and I think I'm buying a little bit more into LSU's defense is just so darn good. And I think the only worry that some people have with LSU right now is the offense hasn't totally clicked, probably attributing to Garrett Nussmeier's torso injury, which has been, I guess, bothering him for the past couple of weeks. But again, defense wins championships,
Correct.
and not to play the cliche card here, but I just think LSU that this might finally be the year where they get this thing cooking and they're going to make the playoff, maybe even win the SEC at this point. Ole Miss, I told you before, they're always going to lose that one game where it's like this is the game where the spotlights on them, whether it's a big game or it's the trap game the next week. There's always that one game, and the fact that this line is so close, it's pretty much a pick 'em. I just have a hunch right now that LSU is going to win this one on the road. So give me LSU plus 1.5, and I think they'll put it together. I think the defense will just be a little bit too much for Chambliss and that Lane Kiffin offense. Maybe a bit of high scoring, Q, but I think LSU gets this one done in the end.
All right, you got a Roll Tide roll, right? 7:30
Mhm.
ABC kickoff against Georgia, 17 ranked Alabama, 2-1, and Georgia sits there 3-0. What are they? Number 5 right now, I think. Number 6, laying 3.5. Total is 52.5. That is what is appealing to me because Georgia's just been putting on a ton of points. Now, granted,
Yeah.
they allowed 41 last week, but they got the win against Tennessee.
Yeah, it's interesting when you Georgia gets that thriller over Tennessee or the thrilling win in overtime. They get a bye week, and it's like, all right, cool. You get 2 weeks to prepare for Alabama. But likewise, Alabama had 2 weeks to prepare for Georgia. The way I see it is, I would have hammered this one on Georgia. I would have picked Georgia with supreme confidence a couple of weeks ago, but Alabama has seemingly turned it around right now. Ty Simpson playing really well at quarterback for the Crimson Tide. I think the biggest surprise is both defenses starting to step it up a little bit. Or they've shown moxie. And again, I know Georgia gave up a lot of points against Tennessee, but Tennessee, I think, has a really, really good offense. It could make some noise in the SEC late in the year, maybe be a fringe playoff contender when it's all said and done. But Gunnar Stockton, I think, is going to be the X factor in this one. I hate to keep it all about the quarterbacks, but the fact that Gunnar Stockton's played this well at quarterback for Georgia through the first couple of games, I'm like, I don't think many people saw this coming, except maybe the people in Georgia, or if you're a Georgia fan. I don't even think all the Georgia fans were totally bought in on Stockton. He's like, all right, you lose Carson Beck, but it's like, okay, he was good, then not so good. He gets hurt, but it's like he was still better than Stockton. So what do we really have here? Stockton's pretty good right now. He's rising up on Heisman odds. I forget where he is exactly, but I think he's within the top 10 right now. And the fact that he's a bit of a dual threat quarterback, I think that'll be an X factor in this game. It's only a 3-point margin right here in terms of the spread. So the fact that it's in Athens helps out, not in Tuscaloosa like last year's thriller. So I'm going to go with Georgia right now. I think they're just a little bit better than Alabama right now, but this will not be, to me, the end of Alabama. They have a tough schedule, Q, but I think Alabama will still find a way to maybe make a late rally in the regular season. I don't know about making the playoff if they lose this game, but I think Georgia's a little bit better right now. So give me the Bulldogs.
All right, Nick Costco from On 3 joining us for a couple moments at Nick Costco 59. Don't forget On Q, powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee and, of course, Three Brooks Bourbon. Get ready with tea. And we welcome back our very good friends over at Play It Again Sports. Fighting Irish 1-2 against Arkansas. Notre Dame ranked 22nd. Arkansas is 2-2. Notre Dame's laying 4.5. I saw a couple sound bites from Sam Pittman, the Razorbacks head coach, basically talking about opportunities, right? So, here we go. Getting back home, you started 2-0. You've dropped 2 straight. They can run the football a little bit. Notre Dame, I think, is a touch suspect. I do like Arkansas at home with the points.
Interesting. I'm the exact opposite, only because not that
very high total, Nick. Very high total.
It is, and I think that's a testament to the way Taylor Green plays at quarterback for Arkansas. They have an explosive type offense, and I think Notre Dame can put up a little bit more points than in general from last year, because I think C.J. Carr gives them a better throwing dynamic, and obviously if they can get Jeremiah Love going, they'll control this game. But the way I see it is, I don't think Notre Dame's necessarily playing desperate right now, but they know the situation. You start at 0-2, you essentially have to win 10 in a row here to make the playoff, or pretty much guarantee your spot in the playoff, because you have quality opponents on the schedule. You'll look at the USC game later in the year if they're still ranked. Going on the road into an SEC environment, even against Arkansas, that's going to make a difference to the committee as well. So they know the situation, but I think Arkansas playing a little desperate as well. But I think Sam Pittman knows that, I mean, if they lose this game, this could go into a spin for him, and his job's in the line. I'm not saying that he's going to go the way of a Brent Pry or Deshaun Foster getting fired after 3-4 games, but I think he knows his time is short. This could be it for Sam Pittman at Arkansas. That seems to be the overarching thought of, like, if they can't get it together and put together a solid end of the year where they're winning 7 to 9 games in the end, this could be it for them. Where they're you want to be in the postseason if you're Arkansas. Tyson Chicken money's over there, getting John Calipari over to coach the basketball team. Sam Pittman's got to get something going here, because they haven't had a really good season since, I believe, 2021 at this point. So, but I think Notre Dame kind of shook off the cobwebs a little bit. You played 2 tough games against Miami and Texas A&M, where you lost by a combined 4 points, and realistically, they should have won that Texas A&M game. So
Yep.
I like Notre Dame here. I think they're going to eventually not pour it on, but really grind down Arkansas in the end. An Arkansas team that lost to Memphis. Nothing against Memphis, but the way they lost to Memphis last week just kind of rubs me the wrong way. So give me Notre Dame on the road here to cover that 4.5.
Yeah, Notre Dame lost to open up the season by 3, as you mentioned, to Miami 27-24, and then 41-40 against Texas A&M was a loss to ranked opponent, so a
Right.
little different animal with an unranked Arkansas. All right, finally, you got to collect that check from Colorado, BYU and Colorado. Colorado getting, I actually saw 7.5. It looks like
Yeah.
it's dipped to 6. You got 25th ranked BYU, 3-0 in the Big 12 against your Colorado Buffaloes, 2-2. How about the total on this one, 48.5? I'm actually, I feel as though this might be kind of one of those Wild West type of games, but this is also my look, but don't touch. I see a lot of guys already chiming in on this one. Give me your thoughts and we'll pull up some comments.
Yeah, got to cash in the check right here. I know they played not the world beaters last week against Wyoming, but they put up 37 last week. So Colorado, no doubt, can score. Defense still a bit of a concern. And obviously, when you play a higher quality of opponent, if you look at their schedule so far, Q, of course, with the way Georgia Tech's played this year, I think you could look back at that game and be like, okay, quality loss. You lost 27-20, albeit at home, but Georgia Tech, borderline top 15 team. They waxed Delaware and they ran away from Wyoming in the end, but you lost to Houston. Not a great game on the road. So this one's back at home, and I know this was the People's Championship in the Big 12 last year in that Alamo Bowl, which BYU totally controlled last season. BYU pretty good again this season, but I just like Colorado at home for some reason in this spot. It's another late game, by the way. How about
Shocker.
this? 10-15 here. I mean, I cashed the Colorado checks, Q, but
Yeah.
can we get an earlier game, please? I know they want to put
I
it in
don't know. I mean, are you
time.
going to have your Buffs stuff on? Or, I mean, what time does Rutgers play? Does Rutgers play Saturday?
They do. Is it a 12? I don't know if it's a noon game this week. I think it's at 3:30 at Minnesota. No, sorry, 12. It's 12 noon, but it's at Minnesota. They're going to be playing the 11 a.m. Eastern. Or I'm sorry, the 11 a.m. local time out there in Minnesota. Interesting PJ Fleck, Greg Schiano clash, obviously. So I was going to give you that game this week as a bounce back for the Scarlet Knights, but after a disappointing blackout game last week, I just can't do it. So
That Colorado game is 10-15.
I know that this is what I'm saying. It's like, I'm trying to cash these checks, but I got to go to bed.
Listen, I understand. I mean, you got
What am I going to do?
UTEP.
What am I going to do? Watch half of the first quarter. It's going to be 10:40, and I'm like, all right, time to chalk it up, and I'll check the score on my phone at 6:30 in the morning the next day.
I mean, listen, what you start doing is what I do. I record these games when I'm calling these games in different time zones and 12-hour difference. And I mean, I got to go back. I mean, I already know that the Giants are going to lose, but I just have to go back and watch it anyway.
Well,
So
yeah,
it doesn't.
you have to subject yourself to the self-torture, obviously. So
I do.
that might be what I do with Colorado here. But again, plus 6.5. I think they're, as you mentioned, one of those kind of wild games where they might not even win. It could be like, one of those 37-33 type of games in the end. Because I do think going back to Caden Salter, I think, when Deion made the switch to Ryan Staub the other week against Houston, it's like, he was playing well, but I think it might have been a message sent now that I'm looking back on it. It's like, hey, Caden, we need you to step it up a little bit. Otherwise, we're going to put the third string guy in, or we're going to go to the freshman. So, you were brought in for a reason where essentially it was like, you're the veteran from Liberty, played well, but there's a freshman that's really, really good. We want to play him too, but you need to step up. I think, and then going to Staub, who's a veteran, nothing against him, but he showed why he's been third on that depth chart for the past couple of years in the Houston game, at least, not the UDEL game, which he won. But I think Salter got a fire lit under him a little bit. I think he, if I remember correctly, he played relatively well against Wyoming. Let me pull up the stats real quick. Yeah, he threw 3 touchdowns, had over 300 yards. So the guy's a dual threat. I think that'll be that'll help out. Oh yeah, ran for 86 and another touchdown. So 4 touchdowns last week. I think that'll keep BYU a little bit honest. Maybe they don't win this one outright, Q, but I got to cash the Colorado check this week, plus 6.5 here in Boulder.
Hey, we know we got that 440 hard out. By the way, do you know?
445, don't worry. I'll give you, it's a little 8-minute
Well,
special.
do you know that the games you're calling, we know you do them for Cal Live, but they re-air on Channel 48 WWON, which is also the home to the award-winning Back Your Play with Q. Do you know that?
Award-winning. What kind of awards are we talking here?
EPA, Delaware Press. What are you talking about? 4 years in a row.
No, why not make it 5 here? What are we doing?
I mean, I don't publicize a lot of my stuff. I don't put it in my bios.
Yeah,
Okay, I
but
don't.
it's but this is an award-winning show. I think we need to let the people know out here
Well,
that
I mean, listen, I mean, On Q is going to be up in January for awards. I'm just letting you know. I mean, we're not. This is what we don't do. I can tell you this, my friend. What we don't do. You know where I'm going with this. What we don't do is stuff the ballot box in New Jersey.
no,
We
no.
don't. We don't do that nonsense with the New Jersey
No,
Broadcasters
no, I
Association.
think we need to go straight for the top here. We need to compete with, the Kornheiser and Wilbons of the world and,
Oh,
for
well, but
for
Wilbon, by the
primetime
way,
sports
Wilbon,
hemisphere.
we got a couple minutes. Wilbon's jackass clown comment on Bruce Pearl. Like, Wilbon used to be a credible, like, I used to enjoy Wilbon. Now he just hates on everything, like divisive guy. Okay, yeah, Bruce Pearl.
I will say, I'll just to push back a little bit. I do like the get off my lawn old man stuff that Kornheiser and Wilbon do a little bit more these days because I
Mm,
love the pairing. They're still the GOAT pairing if you know if you
But that comment
ask
was
me.
out of bounds.
It was. I was actually a little surprised. I mean, he's injected before, even over, especially over the last 5 years, which I really don't care about. But that one did kind of come out of left field because it's their C block segment, and even Tony was like, "Really? Oh, I didn't know that." So, all
Yeah,
right,
but
we're going to
Kornheiser,
finish.
these guys been knowing each other for 40 years. Like, Kornheiser, push back a little bit, will you?
Yeah, he was just like, "Oh, I liked him. I don't know about that." Then he moved on. But hey, what are you going to do? BYU is not Wyoming. Well, yeah, that is true. And so, I mean, I know Joey B is
Oh my
right.
God, what are they going to do? Take a shot at Sister G next?
Well, yeah. Apparently, she can't hack it anymore. She's 106 years old.
Yeah,
She can't hack it. She's 106. She's done. She's finally retiring. Did you see that? She can no
that
longer appear
listen,
on campus. She's 106.
that's
The fact
unbelievable.
that she's still going to basketball games last year, right? Isn't she 106? How old is she?
She's 106 years old.
Is that how old? Yeah, she's 105 years old. Now she's still going to basketball
I,
games. How about it?
I, because she's Sister Jean,
That's right.
right? I
Well, I
mean,
think
it's
Loyola Chicago's Magic's going to run out now if she's no longer on campus. That's very
listen,
unfortunate. But
when you attach yourself to Dios, the divine, then you get blessings,
it's
right?
hey, if yeah, maybe it's time for me to attach myself more. So maybe I'll be the brother.
Yeah, you know what? You should do that more. And yeah.
Brother Costco is going to show up at Rutgers wrestling matches when I'm 100
Well,
years old.
I was going to say, and you shouldn't put all the weight into CU and Rutgers. Again, you got to have some balance, brother. Read the Bible once in a while. What do you have going
Brother Costco is going to show up at a blackout game in about 80 years, and we'll see what happens.
on? As long as those checks clear.
It will still be a 7-5 franchise, but I think college football will be there'll be franchises by 80 years from now. So there'll still be a
Jersey might
5-win franchise.
Jersey might not stuff the ballot box, but there's enough room in the Death Star mic. The mic stays. Leave it alone. I'm trying to get my flag staff from my guys at 48, so we'll see how that plays out. All right. I know I got to let you go. You got high school this weekend?
Yeah, short week. It's going to be a Thursday night kickoff tomorrow. St. Augustine Prep and Mainland Regional at the Corral in Linwood tomorrow at 6 o'clock on Cape Atlantic Live. A little bit of a storm watch, so we don't know how the weather's going to affect kickoff. I'm not plugging any books this week, so
Appreciate that.
I'm sticking to the high school football tomorrow. So it should be a good one though. Mainland got a big win over Cherokee last week, and the Prep is obviously rolling, coming off a. For those who are unaware of South Jersey football, St. Augustine Prep made the non-public A semifinals just last year. So the likes of the Don Boscos, the Bergen Catholics, the Paramises, they made it all the way in that bracket to the semis last year. So St. Augustine Prep really, not that they have turned things around, but they are getting more and more competitive with the big boys up there in North Jersey. So that should be a very interesting game tomorrow night. So hopefully it goes off without a hitch with weather pending in terms of thunder and lightning tomorrow.
Well, I appreciate you not pushing any books. I was probably waiting for you to push like another Tebow podcast. You had him.
No, not yet. We are in the process of trying to reach out to Mr. Tebow and getting him back on for I think the
He
fifth
loves coming.
time.
He loves doing those pods with you, man.
I will say, gave him credit. He remembered me after the fifth time we did a hit together. So I think
Listen,
slowly rising the Tim Tebow rankings in terms of
not to be confused with Ginger Jesus, but the original Sexy Jesus.
that's true. I mean,
all right, brother. Have fun calling the games and enjoy the college football slate. We'll do it again next week. Appreciate you.
Should be another good weekend. Thanks, Q. Appreciate it.
All right, you got it. Quick timeout. We'll come back. All right, good stuff from Nick Costco, kind enough to join us as he does every Wednesday. Lloyd Vance going to join us in the 5 o'clock hour. A lot of NFL to get into. I mentioned Jackson Dart. We'll get the start Dart hashtag going forward for the Giants. Got a lot of Giants fans clamoring in. Look, you got a lot of winless teams in the NFL right now. They're pretty much all in the same boat. All they're trying to do is get a win. Figure out a way to, you don't want your season done before it's friggin' October. I mean, think about this for a moment. The Giants, the Saints, right? Bad football. Tennessee, bad football. How about Houston? What the hell's going on with the Houston Texans? They just got rid of CJ Gardner. They just cut him. I mean, what's that say about him? Remember a couple years ago, everyone was talking about D'Amico Ryan, CJ Stroud? Hell, even Cleveland got the win over Green Bay. Miami Dolphins 0-3. The Jets are 0-3. I mean, Aaron Glenn walking down. Did you guys see what they did with Aaron Glenn when they blocked that field goal and ran it back? They threw it to earth, wind, and fire, right? Because of the 21st of September. Oh, speaking of which, Friday, good show lined up. So we're going to have John Bueller, as we typically do, in the 5 o'clock hour. But around 4:20, 4:30, good friend of the show, James Hasty, who had an outstanding career with the Jets, Kansas City, finished his career with the Raiders, was a very good football player, very good Pro Bowl, second team All Pro. He's going to join me in the 4 o'clock hour. He's got a couple of these coaching tools, but there's also a betting angle, and he has his fingerprint and pulse all over the NFL. I mean, it's phenomenal, his insight. And I've had him on over the last year plus, and he's phenomenal. Now, if you know anything about old school NFL, when he played back, he got drafted in '88. He got drafted in '88, and he played at Central Washington, Washington State. The bump and run coverage. When you hear guys talk about the bump and run, that was basically him and Dale Carter. The bump and run was him and Dale Carter, and they were basically one of the league's top cornerbacking duos. And think about those Chiefs teams, who they had to go through, those Raiders teams, those Denver Broncos teams, right? So he gives excellent insight. Excellent insight. So we're going to have some fun with him in the 4 o'clock hour. That's Friday's show. So he's going to join me in the 4 o'clock hour because I want to talk more about the coaching in the NFL. And as I mentioned, he's got his pulse on what's going on with how they evaluate talent and how they assemble these coaching staffs, because you're looking around the NFL and some of these, the way these staffs are constructed, those that are on some of these said staffs have no business being part of, again, coaching staffs, right? What are we doing? Here we go again. What this is what we're doing on a friggin' Woosah Wednesday? I mean, what the hell? 47 minutes in. Oh, okay. I thought Q was about to say no show on Friday. This is what I'm saying. This is the crap, the nonsense I got to deal with on a daily basis. I get the madman coming in right away. Here we go again. Where's his wise ass comment? Where the hell's the de facto with the banker hours nonsense? I got to listen to you two. Bump and run was popular during the 80s. Now the Jersey unbelievable. Such ungrateful. So ungrateful. Let me get to some of these comments. Chimes in. Q, are you going to talk more about the Dallas and the Packers game? No, I don't care about the Dallas Cowboys and Micah's return. I don't care. Green Bay Packers, that's a bad loss. That's a bad loss. Maybe I got a little too high on the Green Bay Packers. Let me ask you this right now. You look around the NFL. I know you guys always talk about this. Lloyd's going to bring it up in the 5 o'clock hour. We're 3 weeks in, right? Look at the AFC. Cincinnati comes back down to earth, obviously, because you have no Joe Burrow. Pittsburgh's an ugly-looking team. Buffalo's 3-0. Kansas City is just Kansas City is not a good team. They're not. And then let's talk about Baltimore for a moment. Can we talk about that goal line stand by the Detroit Lions? I don't think a lot of people had Detroit. You might have taken them with the numbers, but you weren't looking at Lions on a money line. And Derrick Henry now starting to have a little fumbleitis. I mean, what about this Baltimore defense? They score 41 against Cleveland, but then they give up 36. And they gave up 41 to open up the season against Buffalo in a game they should have won. They were up by 15 and Henry fumbled. You beat up a bad Browns team and Henry's contained. And then you have a couple of bad miscues, and the defense gives up, 36 to Detroit, who had a phenomenal old school goal line stand. That is a great win. I guess my point is right now in the NFL, right now, do you believe that Buffalo, Philly, Detroit, and give me that fourth team? Let's go top four right now. And yes, you told me to pump the brakes on Green Bay. You did. You did. You did. You did. They'll be fine. Cleveland's D is good. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Like, you look at Derrick Henry, he's kind of been quiet. Has he not? He's kind of been quiet back-to-back weeks. The Lions, we don't look at the Lions and say they're a great defensive team. They held him in check. He had 50 yards rushing. This is now 2 weeks. Yes. Is Cleveland's defense better? It is. It is. But he ran all over Buffalo, 18 carries, and then he comes back and he runs for 23 against Cleveland. And then he comes back and he runs for 50 against Detroit. And oh, by the way, he's got a couple fumbles in those games. 3 fumbles in his last 2. I think there's cause for concern. Now, I still think they're going to be there come playoff time, but right now, a little skittish. Denver should be 3-0. That's 2 brutal losses. I mean, it's bad enough you lose on the BS leverage call, right? But then if you flip the channel the other day against my Chargers and my quarterback, with the flowing locks, Justin Herbert, how do you lose that game if you're Denver? How do you now? I'm not going to go back and rechange my Super Bowl predictions and picks. I'm not going to do that. But I'm getting a little worried with Denver and Bo Nix. I'm getting a little worried that there are certain throws. So this kind of goes back to why I think it's okay to play Jackson Dart. Did anyone think, besides the diehard Denver fan, and you guys know I like Bo Nix. I mentioned it last year going into the season or prior to. But did anyone see Denver winning all those games with Bo Nix and making the playoffs? So it's okay. You start a rookie quarterback, see how they perform. But going back to Nix, second season. And what do we look for? That year 1 to year 2, the progression from the quarterback, there are certain throws that he has to make. And there's certain throws that he has not made. And he's still doing some things that probably is driving Sean Payton crazy. Rolling around, throwing across the body. Now, I think he's a good young quarterback. I think he's a good young quarterback. My concern with the Denver Broncos right now is that I'm looking around the AFC. And Denver, if you look at their schedule, they've got Cincinnati coming up. And listen, that's a hit or miss game. They've got the Eagles coming up. That's a winnable game against the Jets and the Giants. Could be a tricky spot against the Cowboys. Could be a tricky spot on the road against the Texans. The Raiders, that's a rival. Then you got Kansas City. Do we believe Kansas City will be much better in mid-November? Then you have Washington. You got the Packers. Jacksonville might be fighting for the division. The Chiefs and the Chargers might be fighting. Like Denver, to me, if you're a Denver fan, I'm not going to say like over the top cause for concern, but damn, 3-0, hell, 2-1 look a lot better than 1-2 right now because those are 2 bad losses, 2 games you had. You can ill afford to trip up against Cincinnati. I mean, that game's at home. That game is at home. I think, is that a Monday night game? Is that Monday Night Football against Cincinnati? Right? There's no way you're at home and you lose a game to a backup. You can't. You can't. You just can't. I meant Green Bay will be okay. My fault. You know what we call that? We call that juice. 2 last second losses in a row here in Denver. Sports radio in meltdown mode. Again, I'm not going to say panic. But to Man's point, missed key passes here and there. Yeah, but second year, man. Second year. And the other thing that they need to friggin' do is run the football. Some of these teams in the NFL cannot run to save their life. They can't run the football. They can't. That is a Monday night game. Thank you for the clarity. Got to run the football in the NFL. You have to. You got to. That takes pressure off a young quarterback. It really does. And so much for me thinking that the big move going out and you get the big guy, you get the tight end Evan Ingram, and he's been banged up. Buffalo right now, I would say, is the best team in the NFL, and it's only 3 weeks. And the Eagles, they figure out a way to win because that's a veteran team. It's a defending Super Bowl champs. Typically, you find ways to win. But I said this on Monday, and I'll reiterate it. What the Rams showed me is that the Rams can play with Philadelphia. That team, you talk about how they're built, shouldn't have lost that game. But they are built to go back into Philadelphia, and they can beat the Philadelphia Eagles. They can. They can. 3 games in, the Eagles offense struggling a little bit as well, right? Knicks missed 3 wide open throws versus the Chargers. 2 would have been touchdowns. You can't do it. You can't do it. Denver building a new stadium, entertainment district like Roberts Kraft and Jerry Jones. Going to be amazing here in Denver in 2030. So yeah, when it's complete, retractable. Oh, how about that? Interesting. Vying for a Super Bowl to host. Yeah. That would be something because, you get the buzz, right? You get the buzz. Denver was always a very, I don't care, what team you root for. There are certain stadiums, Kansas City, Arrowhead, the old Vet, Mile High, Pittsburgh. Lambeau had its allure. It doesn't anymore. Lambeau Field. It just doesn't. But there were always, you look at the schedule and there were some places you're like, oh man, I can't believe they got to travel to Denver. They got to take on the Broncos. I mean, it was always a tough place to play in. Robert chimes in, Q, I'm a diehard Packers fan. I'm not going to panic. 2-1. We're going to be fine. Jordan Love's going to figure it out. Well, that's a bad loss last week. And you got exposed a little bit. See, you guys look at it differently than I do. We can sit there and say, they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. They're going to work through the kinks. They're going to work through some of their issues. But you got to see where you're trending, right? So now you're going to get all the buzz, Sunday Night Football, Parsons back to Dallas, Jerry Jones saying whatever he wants. Green Bay's laying 6.5 on the road against Dallas. And Dallas, their defense stinks. Like, if you want to talk about a get-right game for Jordan Love to light up that secondary, if I come on the air Monday and the Green Bay Packers didn't score 28 or more points, I would be shocked. 6.5 on the road is a lot. That is a nut of a number. It really is. And you do get the double dip on Monday Night Football again. Jets and the Dolphins, Bengals, and the Broncos as well. Just looking at some of these look-ahead lines. But we'll do that with Lloyd in the 5 o'clock hour. Thursday Night Football, Seattle and the Cardinals. No Connor for the Cardinals. A lot of teams taking some hits with some injuries. Bosa, right, with the 49ers. Daniel's still dealing with his nonsense with Washington. A lot of injuries early on with some of these teams. It's fascinating to me how some of these teams consistently have injuries, whether it's soft tissue, whether it's tears, whether it's pulls. The same teams every year, the Giants, the 49ers, constantly injured. The Chargers, constantly injured. Got to be able to make it through a season. Got to. You have to, right? I mean, at times, you want to be able to at least get to December. You're going to deal with some injuries from time to time, but some of these are just maddening. I'm looking around the NFL, guys are tearing ACLs, pulling hamstrings. MCL, ACL, PCL. I don't get it. Chino, my man, pots and pans. My apologies for tuning in late, as I'm sure you already covered Dart. No more excuses for Dave's. Listen, you are a diehard Giants fan. Appreciate you chiming in, Chino, my guy. I think Dave's is done regardless. I think the Giant fan base needs to keep it in perspective. And this is the reality. Don't expect Dart to come in. The offense is going to be catered a little differently, but don't expect Dart to come in right away, light the world on fire. They're gonna work with his strength, his attributes, like the RPO. Have him scramble, rolling out of harm's way. And I know, Chino, you didn't hear this last week, but I pretty much bookmarked that Saint game. But then I also mentioned on Friday, as long as Andrew Thomas comes back and they solidify the offensive line, you will see Jackson Dart. Dable makes a decision. You find out on X if you're Giants players, which is just unbelievable. And here we go. Right, Greg chimes in. Q, you mentioned this in the onset. Can you actually expand on this a little bit? What fracture do you believe is going on within the building? I didn't use that word. I said disconnect. There's a disconnect. There's a difference of opinion. Okay? There's a difference of opinion. The head coach, they want to start a player. And if there's pushback from the coaching staff, it filters down to the GM, who obviously has it trickle down even more to the ownership group. In this case, with the Giants, Dable, the coaching staff, Kafka, the like, Shane, Mara. And again, this is just me. This is what I've surmised. I believe he wanted to start this kid from the get-go. And probably somewhere, someone whispered to him, you can't do it. It's a hot seat year. You're a lame duck. You don't have a contract extension. Try to win some games early with one of these veterans, i.e. Winston, Jameis Winston, or Russell Wilson. The problem I have that how this went down, right? There's no, for everyone saying it's not the right time, it's right. It's like life. Like, you're waiting to propose, or you're contemplating, do I leave this job and go to the next one? Or maybe you want to pick up and you want to relocate, or you're making a decision on buying a house or renting or selling. Like, and in the back of your mind, you're saying to yourself, it's not the perfect time. It's not the perfect time. I gotta wait. I gotta wait. I gotta wait. I gotta wait. It's not the perfect time. I gotta wait it out a little more. I gotta wait for the market to settle. I gotta wait to get a raise. I gotta wait for her to say yes. You gotta wait. You gotta wait. You gotta wait. It's just like in life. Sometimes there's no perfect time. And for every Giant fan that has been pretty much complaining, whining, and bitching and moaning over the last 24 hours, saying it's not the right time, it's not the right time, if not when, right? If not now, when? There's never a perfect time. Like, if quarterback checks off these boxes, then the coach is going to back his own decision, and he would like the support of the GM and the owner. But the head coach is entrusted with making the decision. He doesn't need to have it signed off by the GM or the owner. There are certain situations and circumstances, right, where, okay, if it's a signing or a trade, or you're cutting a guy, or you're benching a franchise quarterback like an Eli Manning, it's totally different. It's totally different. But again, it's just, you have to look at this on face value. And if you are a Giant fan, you've struggled with the fact that this franchise has been piss poor. They've never been the same since Mara booted Tom Coughlin out the door. They don't play winning football. You had a moment with McAdoo. You had a moment with Dable in his first season. Other than that, it's been bad football. And it's just a carousel coming in of quarterbacks, GMs, head coaches. Why? Because there's no consistency. So, to Chino's comment, the worst case scenario for me is that I don't believe Dave's is going to ruin this kid. I don't. I think a shoddy offensive line and lack of confidence and BS play calling ruins the kid. I think the kid's going to go out. He's got a little poise. He's got a little juice. He's got a little moxie. He's got a little cockiness to him, which you need to succeed in the NFL. He's going to make mistakes. It's like a rookie pitcher out there. You're going to get lit up, right? You ever watch Bull Durham, right? So again, the fact that they made the decision now you can play Monday morning quarterbacking. Well, if that's the case, how come you didn't compete and get first team reps and you name him the starter week one? Why? Because we don't do that anymore in the NFL? Yeah. Top 10, top 15, top 20 draft pick, quarterback, you want to see him sooner rather than later. It's not a Cam Ward, number one overall. It's not an Andrew Luck. It's not a Peyton Manning. But point is, you drafted him, right? So I look at it as, at this point, back me in the corner. I'm Dayball. Yeah, I know I'm going to lose my job, but I'm going to do it my way. And don't get it twisted. These head coaches, they don't want to stick a kid out there and see him get hurt, and they don't want to see a kid fail. I don't buy into this sabotage. When we were talking about Cleveland and San, coaches aren't doing that. They're trying to get W's. That's it. They're just trying to get wins. They just want to get wins so they can just figure out a way, okay, can I continue to coach in the NFL? Because it's going to be very hard for Brian Daboll to get another head coaching job. Like, everyone sat there when Robert Saleh, when it blew up with the Jets, and you knew it was because Aaron Rodgers and, bringing in his guys, Hackett, and it just wasn't a right fit. Robert Saleh, when you get fired as a head coach, you're not going to bring that same guy back in that same building and make him defensive coordinator. Let him flourish back with San Francisco. Daboll is not going to sit there and say, well, hold on, you're going to fire me as head coach. Let me be OC. You're not going to do that. So at this point, his career as a coach in the NFL, it's all there. It's on the line. And he knows I can't allow Russell Wilson to go back out there and play the way he did. It was an aberration, that game against the Dallas Cowboys. But as I mentioned to you, the play calling, you cannot have a guy like Malik Neighbors, running go routes and hitches in two deep zone. You can't. That's stupidity. And I don't even like to use that word, but that's horrible play calling. That's scheme. I can't put it all on Wilson, but that last series where he basically airmailed it into the stands, Russell Wilson looks like a shot quarterback that doesn't know what to do. That's what Russell Wilson looks like. He doesn't look like the Russell Wilson with Seattle running around, escapability, moonball, making plays. He looks like a quarterback that has been hit 500 times in his career, sacked. He looks like a quarterback that has basically regressed over the last several years. He looks like a 36, 37, 38-year-old quarterback, and that's okay. That is okay. But again, from a management standpoint, from an ownership standpoint, from a GM standpoint, from a head coaching standpoint, you all signed off on this move. You felt in some way he was going to be that bridge to win games. So you are, in fashion, complicit. Seriously. The Maras, the Shane, the Dayballs. But in this instance, I believe Joe Shane, because of drafting young players, will get a free pass. Brian Daboll is gone. Whether it's after they lose to the Saints, the Eagles, Denver, or at the end of the year. I cannot envision any scenario unless Jackson Dart comes in and he looks like Montana in his prime and the Giants rip off 9 straight wins and make the playoffs. That's not happening. It's not. His tenure as a New York head football coach is done. It's done. It's done. It's done. Totally agree with you. Lastly, when you have folks like Bob Pop on the Giants payroll criticizing content creators, fans, no wonder the Giants organization has become a clown show. Well, I know Bob Papa. And, Bob Papa and Carl Banks are put in a bad spot because, listen, Carl Banks is critical of the Giants, but he has a little more decorum with it. Papa does the content, and obviously he does the play-by-play. So obviously, Chino, you probably listen to the fan. You listen to the pre in the Giants game day when they have Patino and those guys. Some of them, they do have the pom-poms. some of these beat writers. They do, because they know that they don't want to ruin any type of relationship where they're not going to get quotes. It just happens in the world of media. I've been doing it for 20 plus years. I know. I've been in these locker rooms. I've been in these locker rooms, not only in New York, but in DC and especially in Philadelphia. Some guys just don't want to ask certain questions. Some guys don't want to be overly critical. They just don't, because they're cutting their nose to spite their face. They don't want to do that with these teams. The Giants have been so bad for so long that even when you listen to the radio broadcast, you can hear almost like the angst in their voice, where it's just like, you got to be kidding. Carl Banks will go after a player. I think he was overprotective at Thibodeau last year because you had some of these jackass clowns on New York radio crushing the kid for no apparent reason. They were just pissing on the Giants to piss on the Giants. They're still doing it, some of these shows, some of these talking heads. So, like, as a play by play guy, that's a tough spot because you want to be critical, but you're also representing the team, and you do have to shed somewhat of a positive light. But I'm telling you, it weighs on these guys. They don't want to come on the air and call bad games every weekend. They don't. They really don't. And to your point with the content creators, I can appreciate that, but also you probably follow the same guys I do on social, some of these giant guys, and they follow me as well, respectively. Some of them throw stuff out there that really makes no sense. And it's just really to stir the pot and get a rise, and they go back and forth. Like, listen, you can't do a weekly spot on the Fan if you're Carl Banks and then have the two hosts be disrespectful to you. You can't. And that's what happened last year. And they know who they are. That's what happened last year. And Carl Banks, who I have a lot of respect for, he shouldn't have to go back and do those spots anymore, because what do you want him to say after a while? You want these guys to flat out and say what we already know? That it's a bad team, it's a poorly run team? But you're talking about a guy that, won 2 Super Bowls with the Giants. That's tough to do. Tiki Barber, a little different. Tiki Barber, he's a little more overly critical, but I think they're fair. So, again, it's a bad football team. It's poorly run. It's poorly run. John Mara is no Duke. He's no Wellington Mara, right? He's not. They thought this was a package deal. Joe Shane, Brian Daboll, here we go. We're going to spin it around, and we know that Josh Allen struggled early on, and now he's an all-pro. He's an MVP. He's a future Hall of Famer. We're going to do that with Daniel Jones. Are you freaking kidding me? That's apples and oranges. It just doesn't work like that. Now Daniel Jones is thriving, which is a direct indictment on the head coach. Is 10 games of Jackson Dart under center going to ruin him? I don't believe so. I think that's absolute fodder and clickbait. If this kid's good, they obviously see him in practice. Just insert any quarterback. They see him every day. They know what he's bringing to the table. There's buzz, there's juice, there's excitement. He's a new toy. They want to unwrap him. They want to see what's under the tree on Christmas morning. And here we go. Let's play with the toy. Yeah, you're going to fall off your bike once in a while, but you get back on it. So that's where I think they're at. All right, Lloyd's going to join me in about 10. I got a lot of comments coming in. We'll get to them. Keep it locked in. Quick timeout. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up on a Woosah Wednesday edition of On Cue. All right, welcome back, everyone. We'll take up to 6 o'clock straight up. G chiming in from Tom's River Q. Excellent points on the Giants. I didn't think about it from that standpoint, but I do think it's still a panic move. I want to see what the kid has. But as you mentioned, sink or swim. What happens if he goes out there and Watt's to bed? It's a rookie quarterback. What? I mean, okay. What if he goes out there and he struggles and he looks unsure of himself? That's what happens with rookie. We want to compare. Look at Cam Ward. We're looking at Cam Ward, and you do have to have some talent and coaching around him. Do you not? But what's going on with Cam Ward already? They're talking about changing it up, the play calling, the OC, simplifying the offense. Then you go back to last year when we were talking about Caleb Williams. Well, now you're bringing in the right guy, and everyone was writing off Caleb Williams, and the kid played really well last weekend against the Dallas Cowboys. Granted, we know about their defense. Anthony Richardson was an overreach. That kid is struggling. Bryce Young, we all wanted to give up on Bryce Young, right? Penix, who I never thought was really good, right? But Penix, I mean, think about it. It's like, come on, right? I don't think he's very good, but I also think, you have to have patience. You have to have patience with these guys. That's all I'm saying. Franchise chimes in from Baltimore. Q, excellent points on the Giants. I never really thought of it like that. It does fall on Mara's head. But to your one point about Jackson Dart sinking or swimming, doesn't that fall on the head coach to have him prepared? It does. But they're not. Okay, if you guys really believe 100% that a head coach is throwing someone out there just to save his hind, I would say there's probably the 75, 80%, right? Again, we all know that. We've seen it in so many different sports, but it's so pronounced in the NFL because you're talking about young quarterback. We all know this head coach is trying to save his job, but it's too little too late. Panic or not. He's gone either in season or after. That's it. I don't even think it's debatable. I really don't. But my whole thing last year, you should have fired him because I didn't want him anywhere near what they were going to do in the draft, him and or Joe Shane. Chino says, fair enough. Another reason I watch a show, you keep things level-headed and down and drown out the noise. I appreciate that, brother. We try to. I mean, it's an opinion, right? And everyone has their own opinion, and it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just it's opinion based. I mean, that's really it. Mike in Ohio chimes in. Q, how about my Brownies with the big win? Flacco starts for another 2 or 3 weeks. Listen, that's a big win by the Cleveland Browns. I still believe that just like with the Giants, you've got a bridge quarterback in Joe Flacco. Now, if Joe Flacco goes out there and goes 18 of 38 for $165 and a couple picks, they're going to be clamoring for who? Gabriel or Sanders, are they not? I mean, he was, I guess, he was bad the other day, guys. It's just, and I like Joe. Joe Flacco's had a great career, but he was 21 of 36 for 142 yards, 3.6 yards an average, plus a pick. Like, it's only a matter of time. But for some reason, I think Cleveland is more reluctant to go to Gabriel or Sanders. I really do. I really do. I believe there's just some reason that they don't want to pull the trigger. Now, I was adamant prior to the season that Stefanski was going to go with the guy that he believes gives them their best chance to win football games. Now, maybe they win a couple more with that defense, as the madman alluded to. But do we think for a minute? I mean, if the Cleveland Browns turn around and go on the road and beat the Detroit Lions, then that's an indictment on the Detroit Lions. That's a Heckle and Jai team, right? Is it Dr. Heckle? Mr. Jai? I don't know, whatever. But you guys know what I'm saying. And then let's just say they beat Minnesota. Now they're a 3-2 team. Well, these quarterbacks they're not gonna play. If you're a Browns fan, you need them now to get blown out by the Lions, Flacco struggle, blown out at home. You get the Boo Birds. You lose on the road to Pittsburgh. And then you come back. If you want to bookmark a day against Miami in October, and you're going to see, like, you got to see who's getting the reps. Is it Gabriel? Is it Sanders? Dion basically said, you're going to see my kids start. That's all well and good. That's great. But when? Like, at this moment, Cleveland's defense, they're good. They're good. But their offense, I don't believe they can match Detroit. Now, Detroit might have an issue moving the football here and there, but I still believe the Detroit Lions can put up 21, 24 points. Can the Browns muster 24 points of offense with Joe Flacco? I don't believe so. I really don't. But again, it's just a question of, and look, the whole, I don't really, I don't follow what's going on. I got a couple buddies that cover the Browns, and there's a lot of mixed reaction, okay, to how they view Shador Sanders, right? And I when did we spend so much time talking about an inactive third string quarterback, right? And I think, Terry Bradshaw, who's kind of getting up there, really was very critical of Shador Sanders. Really. He was. Now, do I believe a 40-year-old Joe Flacco is going to start 17 games this season? I think it's highly unlikely. Now, is Gabriel truly in line to get the first start or to get non-Flacco snaps, right? Or do you, no pun intended, throw the fans a bone and you see what the kid Sanders can do? The problem is if he's not getting the reps in practice, that's an issue. It's one of the reasons that the Giants named Dart as a backup, because you're going to split, you're going to get some reps. Now, I think what's going to happen is the only time you really see Sanders on the field is if Flacco, God forbid, gets hurt, plays so poorly they bench him, and Gabriel's not the answer. Now you go to plan C, and that's Sanders. But I believe the Cleveland Browns are kind of in that same boat, even though their quarterbacks were not a first round. They didn't trade back. You have to see what Gabriel has, and you have to see what Sanders have. You have to. What if they give you a little something and you can build around that and win some football games? I don't know at all how these guys are going to play out. I don't. Are you a Heisman? Heat 12 man? No, all right. Was that shot at me? I don't know. All right. Taking a shot over here. That was an angel moment. Is it Jekyll and Hyde or is it? Can we get confirmation on that? Is it Dr. Jekyll? It's not Mr. Jive, right? Is it Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? Hold on, I gotta Google this. Let me see. Dr. Jekyll. Just Google it. Heckle and Jekyll, right? Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Okay. Oh, 1941. Here we go. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. What did I say? Dr. Heckle and Mr. Jive? That's too funny. Cleveland is ready to move to Gabriel. Those are like Sanders just see as a step from him playing, so they just want him to play. But I've listened to Rizzo all week and 92.3, and they're done with Joe. You have to be. I mean, he was horrible. He was horrible. What, he's at 3.6 yards an average. Come on, what are we doing here? De facto, Mr. Heckle is brilliant. Oh, yeah. What did he say? Wilson Pickett, Kenny Pickett, Slim Pickens, right? By the way, look ahead. Some of these lines. Cardinals 1.5. Thursday Night Football. That should be a good game. I feel bad for the Cardinals, though. Connor's a great running back. You don't want to lose him. Vikings, Steelers, Commanders at the Falcons. They're going to stick with Penix. Their offense stinks. Wow. The Saints are 15.5-point dogs. 15.5-point dogs to Buffalo. You got some we like to call blown up lines this weekend. You know what that means to blown up lines, right? Some of these look and a lot of don't touch. All right. Well, welcome in our good friend. 520. Look at Donnie on the spot. Our good friend Lloyd Vance from Lloyd Vance's Insider Football and on SR 1029 FM. The Game every Monday, 8 to 9. Kind enough to join me at Lloyd Vance for a couple moments. We typically do it on a Tuesday, but we'll do it on a Woosah Wednesday. Vance's View. How are you, my friend?
Doing good, Q, man. We're starting to see some separation, but crazy upset this weekend. I mean, it was Atlanta
Yep.
and of course Green Bay. Who
Yep.
would have ever thought of that? But
Let's stick in our backyard for a moment. That Rams and that Eagles game. Did you walk away saying, okay, the Rams, even though we kind of knew we both liked the Rams with the number and covering and the money line as well? I know I did. That was a horrible bad beat, but whatever. Do you believe the Rams showed you enough where they can go into Philadelphia come playoff time and match up mano a mano? Did you walk away saying, okay, you know what? The toughest test for the Eagles coming out of the NFC might be this Rams team?
if they had finished the job, Q, and won that game, I would have said yes. But you start to wonder, can they beat the Eagles? Are the Eagles their kryptonite? Because the Eagles found a way to win that game, and the Rams handed it to them. All those field goal attempts,
That's
early
right.
on in the game, they're kicking field goals, and
Yep.
uh, they're 4 for 6 on field goals. They got 2 of them blocked, and they just could not close the door. So yeah, they have some talent on that team, but you wonder, okay, Stafford, 37 years old, what does he have left? And did they get too cute? They should have found a way to win that game. But yeah, they definitely are contenders. But right now in the NFC, and I asked this on my show, Kevin, I was like, is there any team in the NFC that can compete with them? And right now I'm saying no, the Eagles are number one.
Yeah, I think to your point, when you go against Eagles, the one thing, even though they're behind, they never really panic because they've been there before and they have the offense kind of turn on, albeit I think it takes a little too long at times. But if you're the Rams and you're on the road, you're right. A good mark, a mark of a good football team is you have to figure out a way to punch it in. And you can't trade field goals for touchdowns with the Eagles. And as I mentioned too, you get a block that's run back the other way. Um, it's a tough loss for the Rams. There was a lot of them, and as Scott Hansen says, the witching hour. You had the nonsense going on in with the Chargers and Denver. You had the nonsense going on in that Tampa and that Jet game. I mean, it was bizarre. The Green Bay and the Cleveland game. I mean, worst loss of the weekend. We talk about some of these brutal losses. Who, in your estimation, had a brutal loss?
Wow. To me, Q, it has to be the Green Bay Packers. I mean, at a certain point in that game, they're up 10 points, and they're closing the game out. And Jordan Love throws an inexplicable interception late in the game, and then they just allow. Brandon McManus gets a chance to win, and they allow him to block it. And then they were left enough time on the clock. I talked about Schmidt a couple weeks ago. Remember, he was my lackey. I mean, he drilled that 55-yarder. So good win for Cleveland, but Green Bay was a heavy favorite in that game, and yeah, I'd say that's the worst loss of the weekend.
We were talking a little bit about when it's time to kind of pull the plug on some of these veterans, and we'll go to Cleveland and we'll go to the Giants for a second. But Joe Flacco's 40; like he's not going to give you much anymore. So I guess it's a question of when do they go to Gabriel and or Sanders? I mean, I don't see them. I know their defense can keep them in games, but I don't see them beating the Detroit Lions. And now you're 1-3. Maybe you lose another game. You're 1-4. I mean, can you foresee a situation sooner rather than later, kind of like with the Giants, where okay, that's it, man. I, I've seen enough. Like I don't know how much equity does Flacco have, right? I mean, look, he helped the Browns, came off the sofa, went to the playoffs, but I don't know. I don't think they're going to release him. They're going to carry 3, but how much longer do you keep going with Joe Flacco in a lost year?
Yeah, Q, a lot of it is how you lose. And I think in a few minutes we talk about the Giants, how they lost, but the Browns still have a lot of fight in them. And yes, they have a tough game at Detroit. They have Minnesota, at the Steelers, Miami, at New England, and then they're bye. So I think at a certain point, maybe they go back to their form that we saw earlier in the season. But the Browns are fighting for them. And Junkins has come in there and give them a spark at the running back position. He ran very hard, opened some things up in terms of play action. The line played a lot better. And as long as those things are fitting with that defense, yeah, they're going to stick with Flacco. But eventually, I would expect to see Gabriel and or Shador Sanders later in the season.
You have to admit, full disclosure, when you heard that the Giants were benching Russell Wilson, you probably smiled and said, you know what? Once in a while, Q, that little squirrel, the blind squirrel finds a little bit of a nut here and there. I said the Saints game, but I also mentioned if they solidified the line, here we go. Bench them, trade them, whatever, start Dart. Is this, in your opinion, is this a classic, I got to save my ass move, panic move, smart move? What do you think?
Yeah, Q, I think a lot of it is Dable trying to save his job and saying, okay, I can work with this young guy. I can develop him. Give me the opportunity that I had with Josh Allen, who kind of struggled early in his career, and then Dable will turn around. But to me, I think it's a lot more wrong with this team than Russell Wilson. He has had some untimely turnovers, but there's just not a lot of talent on his team. Tracy gets hurt, and you just saw him not be able to move the football. So maybe Dar will be in there. Give him a spark. Why not give the young guy a chance? But we talked about that tough schedule that they have. They play 10 teams that made the playoffs last year, and we'll see how Dart does.
But here's my problem with, well, not my problem, but here's my pushback to what you said. I do think they have, little Scatman Scataboo showing some signs. They, bad contract with Singletary. They're not utilizing him, but they have a good tight end in Johnson. You've got Robinson, you got Malik Neighbors. It's play calling too. I mean, I hate to kind of belabor this point, but when you're having a guy like Malik Neighbors, who you have to get involved in friggin' early and often, when you have him running go routes and hitches in two deep zone, that's play calling, that's scheme. Like, get him involved early. I believe if Dart or Winston were playing the other day, they're going to throw the football down the field. And the problem I have with Russell Wilson is that one series, he throws it down the turnpike. I mean, their offense stinks. They can't move the football with Russell Wilson. And that's why when people get so enamored, and it's a Woosah Wednesday, but now I'm losing it, and it's not your fault. People get so enamored about training camp, and guys look great, and they come in the best friggin' shape of their life, and they're wearing their shorts, and they're all ripped up, and moonball this, moonball that. That offense stinks. They can't friggin' score. I mean, I'll tell you how bad it is. And I actually scored more in high school, and I'm not talking about on the field, I'm talking off the field, and I was a friggin' late bloomer. I had the bad haircut, I had the braces, I started to work out going into my senior year. That's how bad it was for me, late bloomer. This team cannot score. They can't. And when you have a possession where he looks absolutely clueless and he's throwing the ball away, taking bad snap, airmailing it, come on, man. Like, he looks like a quarterback that has zero confidence in his ability. And it's okay, because at this stage of his career, I don't mind that. Like, it's expected. When you're done, you're done. He's on the back nine. But I will say this, and I don't know if you agree or not. There's no way, even if Jackson Dart comes in and plays really well and they lose games, but shows he's a competent quarterback and you can build around it, please, for the friggin' love of God, Lloyd, tell me there's no way you can bring back Brian Dable.
Yeah, to me, Q, I was surprised that Dayball and Joe Shane even made it to this season. After that debacle last season with the whole Saquon leaving, and just they lost a team, in my opinion. So I do agree with you. It's time. Russell Wilson's not giving them anything. That one ball he threw in the end zone where he just hung up there, and then Neighbors was like, should I knock it down, or not? And it was an easy.
Oh, and Collinsworth said that was not Russell Wilson's fault.
Oh, come on. Yeah, come on. That was a terrible throw. And you just see that he's just lost it. He lost his fastball, and there's nothing wrong with that at his age. And he still has that resume that some people debate is Hall of Fame worthy. And
it's not the time to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And give the kid his chance. And the Giants are just going to play this thing out, see how it goes. But this schedule's tough. As you said, the Chargers, maybe he can get something going at New Orleans. That was always the spot where I thought they might give him a chance.
Both of us.
They have Philadelphia, at Denver, which is going to be tough for him. And that defense, they sack people, and then at Philadelphia again. So, they're going to feed him to the fire, but see what he has. I mean, What else do they have, Q? Everybody talked about they were 3-0 in the preseason. That just shows you the preseason don't mean squat. And as you were saying, you know, Wilson's not the guy.
Uh, More concern. What is the most alarming thing right now? And I want to focus on the Texans for a moment because a couple years ago we talked about D'Amico Ryans, C.J. Stroud. That offense is bad. They just cut C.J. Gardner Johnson. I think it speaks more to the player. I know that Sirianni was asked about potentially reunion. You don't want that guy in the locker room now. If he shuts his mouth and he can play a little bit, but I just think you're going down a rabbit hole with C.J. Gardner Johnson. But for them, the Texans, to cut him, and now all of a sudden to talk about the offense, the play calling, the scheme, I feel as though we always mention these early season disappointments. Like pretty shocking that the Houston Texans are 0-3 when we thought it was going to be kind of a layup to win that division.
Yeah, and you're seeing these guys make desperate moves. Ike Hilliard, the one receivers coach for the Falcons, he gets let go, and the Texans, I think, are moving their offense coordinator down to the sideline.
What is that? Now, what does that tell you?
They're trying to find something. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of issues going on with it. I watched a lot of that game, Q, and as you said, it was boring watch. Nick Chubb, unfortunately, he's not running the ball with any effectiveness at his age and the injuries that he's had. And then Stroud is not seeing the field. He's just so many times I was yelling at the TV, throw it, and he just wasn't. He's drifting back in the pocket, taking unnecessary sacks. Yes, their offensive line is a mess after they traded Laramie Tunsil to Washington, but they have to do more. And that was a bad loss. It's a divisional game. That's a game they have to win. And in the past couple of years, they have won it when they've ruled this division. But they're just not the same team, Q. And they're in desperation mode. They're hosting the Titans, and they need to win that game.
Listen, I think a lot of these teams, they won an semblance of a season, and at 0-3, 0-4, your season for all intents and purposes, I mean, it's done. I mean, look at the mess in Miami, right? There's no moral victories. Aaron Glenn, they put the meme to Earth, Wind, and Fire, which was hilarious. That is it. If you're Aaron Glenn, with all due respect, you can't sit there and say we're not the same old Jets. Yeah, you are the same old Jets until proven otherwise. Then you get Cincinnati. I mean, look, I said this. I know Russell Wilson is not going to ask for his release, but if I'm the Giants, not even Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston, I call up Cincinnati. You need a quarterback. You need a proven veteran quarterback right now because it's pretty obvious that Jake from State Farm is not the issue. I mean, Isaiah Rodgers, I don't even have to ask you about a game ball soon because I know he got one. He had a career day in that regard. But they need a quarterback, Cincinnati.
They do. Jake Browning's not the answer. And they may try to look on their bench further, but why not try to bring in a veteran? Maybe it's Kirk Cousins. Maybe it's Russell Wilson, as you said, Jameis Winston, anybody but Browning. Browning just does not look like a pro quarterback. Yeah, maybe he could play in the UFL or something like that, but it's going to be a long season for them if they continue trotting him out there. Yes, they're 2-1, but you just see they can't run the ball with effectiveness with Brown, and it's just a matter of time before Chase and Higgins start getting, they get angry out there. And we've talked about their defensive liabilities with everybody but Hendrickson. So this team, they're in trouble. And they play Monday night in Denver. And that offensive line's not protecting Browning. And he's making mistakes. He threw a ton of interceptions in this game. And I just see more going to Surtain the second and the rest of that secondary for the Broncos.
Who is a more legit 3-0 team? My Indianapolis Colts and Indiana Jones, or the 49ers?
Well, the 49ers saw they could win with Mac Jones. It was a 1-point win.
He's played well.
The Colts, I got to hand it to him, Q. That DeForest Buckner and the guys on the defense, Franklin, they're making plays on that defense. And then the offense, he's in control. He's protecting the football. And he's doing all the right things, and they're dominating teams. I mean, I know it's the Titans, but they win 41-20. So I'll say they're more legit. And in that division, You talk about the Texans leaving the door open. I'm really not believing in the Jaguars. Yeah, I think the Colts could win that division now.
Do you believe this is sustainable, what Daniel Jones is doing?
It can be. It can be, Q. When you look at this team and their schedule, and I talked about that defense, I think, yeah, I think he could.
They go on the road and they play the Rams.
Yeah, so now we're going to really start to find out. So they're at the Rams, the Raiders they host, and then they have the Cardinals, but then they're at the Chargers, and then they have Tennessee. So we talk about this light schedule in that division. I think they can get to 10 wins, and we always thought 10 wins was the key to winning the AFC South. So, as long as he doesn't get back to his fumbling ways and of the yesteryear, I think, yeah. And don't worry about Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he was all world this week,
Yeah.
and it makes his job a lot easy.
Yeah, as far as their numbers, by the way, so they were plus 200 odds to make the playoffs, plus 400 to win the AFC South behind the Texans at minus 110. Jacksonville, Vince's Duval, plus 300, 100 to 1 to win the Super Bowl. Fast forward now 3 weeks later, their odds for the postseason are minus 280. That's what happens when you jump out to a 3-0 start. Minus 140 favorite, so I got to lay 140 to win back 100 to win the division, 35 to 1 to win the Super Bowl. I mean, the football gods, if Daniel Jones goes on a run and the Colts win the Super Bowl and Daniel Jones is Super Bowl MVP, I got to be honest, I just might call it a day. Like, that might be it for me. That, Richie Q might he might cease to exist. I don't know if I can bear to handle any of that if that's the case. Now, I don't believe that's going to happen, but it's a great story.
And Q, just
Yeah.
to throw this in, 3-0 teams are 75 have a 75% chance since 1990 of making the playoffs. Last year, there were 5 of them, and 4 of the teams made it. So Seattle was the only one last year that didn't make it, that started 3-0. So
Interesting.
great start for them. Yeah, and you're right. Great story.
Man says Ricky Pearsall is now on the injured reserve. He's a diehard 49ers fan. I feel as though the Giants to 49ers, remember even the Ravens and the Chargers, like every year you would get like 13 players on the IR. It's just utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, and John Lynch, their GM, he's going to have to earn his money, and because he had Nick Bosa go out with the ACL, he's done for the season, and they've had a lot of major injuries for the Niners. Yes, they're 3-0, but it's going to be tough to maintain that pace. And Christian McCaffrey, a ton of carries and touches the last couple of weeks. You're wondering if he's going to be next.
Nolan Smith, Eagles starting edge rusher, also with an injury to the triceps. Looks like he's going to be out 2 to 4 weeks. They put him on the IR, so he'll rest, which means now, I guess, what would that be, November 2nd. I know there was a topical conversation about the Eagles and their offense. And look, they win football games. Whether we want to decipher if it's boring or not is one thing. My concern, if I was an Eagles fan, would be why does the offense consistently start slow? And then it's funny, during the broadcast, you'll hear them make a point of reference that A.J. Brown has 0 targets, and boom, just like that, he starts to get his targets. Like, what do you attribute that to?
Yeah, Q, they're slow starters, and much like we talked about last year with Kansas City, yes, you're finding ways to win. Kansas City won 11 games where it was 1 possession or more, and the Eagles are getting it done, and it's huge. But you have to start wondering, you're like, okay, is this going to come back to bite them? These close wins and later on in the season. Now, this is a prove-it game going to Tampa. We know Tampa has been a house horse for the Philadelphia Eagles.
That's right.
Think about that playoff game. Jalen Hurts has got to start more efficient. The last week, -1 in terms of passing yards in the first half. And then, yes, they woke up. That 4th down play to Smitty was huge in the corner of the end zone, and that kind of turned things around. And, of course, the block kicks. But, yeah, in the National Football League, it's just too tough to win games when you're behind by such a large deficit.
Yeah, I mean, listen, one of my horrible plays on the week, and I actually had the Saints on a money line. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. Man, someone's got to win that game against the Giants. 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting with the Giants and the Saints. Q, I'm leaning towards the Giants in that one. I think Jackson Dart, he's playing pretty efficient, and I watched a lot of the Saints. They looked inept against the Seattle Seahawks, and they got a lot of their yards and points when the game was out of hand.
I know I mentioned today's not the day for it, but Matt is a big time Seahawks fan and says, Q, would you say that Russell Wilson's a Hall of Famer? I don't even know why we're having a debate. Listen, quarterbacks, you know, Johnny Unitas was sitting in a locker room in 71, 72, or 72, 73 with the Chargers when they were passing around a joint. He finished his career with the Chargers, right? Listen, veteran quarterbacks, more times than not, they're not going to finish with the original franchise. You're talking about a quarterback in Russell Wilson that came in the league in 2012. He was, how long was he there? For 10 years, 11 years?
Correct, yes.
Pro Bowl, won a championship, won a Super Bowl. I mean, people think, you're looking at this guy and you're saying, okay, this is a 34, or 40 and 13 type of Russ Wilson. He's not that guy anymore. He's 37. So yeah, you started to see that you got a quarterback that's been sacked over 500 friggin' times in his career, mind you, 567 times. So you knew when he went to Denver, I told you this at the time. When Hackett decided to attempt a field goal late and they took the ball out of Russell Wilson's hand, 4th and 3, I think it was against the Chargers on a Monday night or Sunday night, I knew that was it. And then we knew Sean Payton wasn't a fan. They weren't married to Russell Wilson. Okay, Pittsburgh, he gave you a flash. And then with the Giants, they weren't married to Russell Wilson. Everyone keeps comparing apples and oranges today. They're like, well, wait a second. You're benching a future Hall of Famer like the Giants did Eli. It's totally different. You're a franchise foundation, an iconic player with one franchise. So it stung more when they benched Eli. They had ties to him, that organization. They don't have ties to Russell Wilson. He's a friggin' mercenary. But if I look at Russell Wilson at this moment and I see a quarterback that's thrown for close to 50,000 yards, 350-something odd touchdowns, he's won over, 40 games, over 500, and won a Super Bowl, to me, that's a Hall of Famer.
Correct. And his long-term resume speaks for itself. But you started seeing cracks in his armor when he left Seattle. He just was not the same player he used to be with the mobility and making smart throws. And lately, he's just been assassin. When you see guys taking 1-year contracts, that's just like, okay, let me go where the opportunity is. And yes, he performed pretty well in Pittsburgh, but he got benched, eventually.
He was a great quarterback in Seattle, man. He was phenomenal. I mean, I remember I used to text I'm like, this guy's unbelievable, running around, scrambling, making play. The offensive line, late with Denver, it was a bad fit. And then what happens? You're trying to longevity, give me a year, prove it deal. Pittsburgh, we knew he was a bridge. New York, once they draft Dart, we knew he was going to be the bridge. So I'll say game balls. Obviously, it's got to be Isaiah Rodgers. How do you not give it to him?
No, he was in a running. It was tough. Q.
My
he had 2 INTs, including a pick 6. I also thought about Eagles D lineman Jordan Davis. I mean, 5 tackles he had to sack and the block kick in the return. But I gave it to Jonathan Taylor, the Colts running back. 17 rushes, 102, 3 touchdowns, averaging 6 yards a carry in that 41-20 dominating win over the Titans. So he's looking like, he's going to be the engine for that team.
Wow. Lackey. I don't think we're going to go field goal kickers. Dallas secondary. Caleb Williams could have got a game ball too, by the way. Did you give it to Russell Wilson?
No, I didn't give it to Russell Wilson. And I almost thought about giving it to the quarterback for this team, but I gave it to the head coach, Raheem Morris, in terms of everyone. The Falcons were ill prepared. They got shut out 30-0 by the Panthers. Penix had 2 interceptions in the game. He was terrible in the game. Team had 3 turnovers overall, 5 of 13 on third downs, and they didn't show up in Charlotte. So it was a bad loss for the Falcons, so I gave it to Raheem.
Hey, do you remember the old movie in the 40s? Apparently I butchered it. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde?
Yes. Yeah, that was a book, famous book, too.
It was a book, right. Okay, I thought it was a black and white movie, too. Yeah. Apparently I called it like Dr. Heckle and Mr. Jive. So now Next thing you know, Q will say Dr. Hustle and Mr. Flow. By the way, very underrated. I would stick. Would we, if we had to select two or select one out of two, do we go 8 Mile or do we go Hustle and Flow? I loved both of them, but I you know it's hard out here for what. I'm all about Hustle and Flow.
Yeah, Terrence Howard's very good, but I think that Eminem is more popular, so he'll get the popular vote. But yeah,
Really?
I love DJ and Hustle and Flow. I
Yeah,
mean,
man. Why not?
underrated
Just
movie.
DJ.
Underrated movie.
It was a great movie. Listen, 8 Mile was fantastic because no one thought that Eminem had acting chops, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess it's Dr. Hustle and Mr. Flow. Um, all right, we'll do a look ahead. We got BYP tomorrow, and we'll record that. That'll be up on the YouTube channel. That'll also be on Saturdays and Sundays. WWON TV 48. Lloyd and I will go all through the games, the gamut with the lines, the props. We did okay. Now I will tell you that obviously the Saints game was a disaster for me. The Rams go from pretty much, I don't care if you missed a field goal, you can have it blocked, just don't have return it for a pick, minus 4.5. That crushed me. We did play the over Monday Night Football, which was a gimme, Detroit and Baltimore. Real quick before I let you get out of here, how about that goal line stand by the Lions the other night?
Yeah, the Lions, they're starting to come along. Dan Campbell showed a lot of cojones, going there for that late fourth down and getting it. And they have some talent on that team in terms of, the two running backs and the receivers. They do need to get that defense together. But as you said, that was a huge stop for them. And they were Lamar Jackson was sacked 7 times in that game. So that defense has come along a little bit.
Yeah. All right, brother. Don't forget everyone can follow at Lloyd Vance, and he's always kind enough to join us during the week. Vance's View, Game Ball, Lackey. Check him out every Monday night. Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on Sports Radio 102.9 FM. The Game, 8 to 9. You guys do a fantastic job, and as I mentioned, joins me during the NFL season for BYP. All right, we'll do it again later on in the week. Football Friday, busy show, but I always appreciate you jumping on board for a couple moments, pal. Thank you.
All right, Q. Thanks for having me on.
All right, you got it. My guy, Lloyd Vance. Quick timeout. We'll come back. We'll wrap it up on the other side. All right, a couple minutes to play with on a Wednesday edition of On Cue. Rich Quinones here. I want to remind everyone, don't forget, we are powered by our good friends over at Three Brooks Bourbon. Get ready with tea. Fresh roasted coffee, 20% off your first purchase. BYP20, which was our odd segment of On Cue. And, of course, back your play during the week. Check that on the show notes. Also, Jersey Short Breaks getting set for season number 2 in the TBL, the Basketball League. They have another tryout coming up October 18th. And before we blink, it's going to be March. It's crazy how time absolutely flies. I know. Let's get to Halloween first, right? And of course, we welcome back our good friends from Play It Again Sports, Deptford. Checking out all your used sports equipment and more. 1450 Clements Ridge Road in Deptford, New Jersey. Open 7 days a week, and they'll give you cash right on the spot. And who doesn't like some cash? You probably weren't going to make any cash listening to me do my picks last week. I can say that. Can I not? What do we got here? G chimes in Q. Did you hear that Jackson Dart's quote? Sounds very poised and confident. Doesn't translate to success on the field on Sunday. I have absolutely no idea. what do you want him to say, right? Right? T chimes in. Dart and Scataboo. We're pulling off the upset this weekend, Q. Maybe. The Scat Man, right? I like Scataboo. I thought that was a listen. They've had some good draft picks. Russell Wilson said, "Quote: The best thing I can do is lead from the front. I thank God every day that I get to do what I love to do and play this game with guys that I love and enjoy being around. It's all about the team and helping Jackson." That's what you want. That's what you want him to say. That's the positive. That's what you want. And Wilson had been criticized not being a leader throughout the course of his career, but that's what you want to hear, because you just never know. He might have to step up there, right? God forbid if Jackson Dart gets hurt. But once you've gone now to Jackson Dart, smoke and mirrors, get rid of all that. Once you've gone that route, you can't. TP chimes in Q, really enjoying the show. But listen, I'm done finding different reasons to be optimistic for this team as much as I look forward to seeing Jackson Dart put up or shut up. You're not going to go back to him. You're not. That's the thing. You go to Dart and that's it. And you just you move forward and you just see what you have. And if you're a Giant fan, you should be a little excited. Anytime you have a young rookie coming into play and you're not married to the vet, it's different, right? Making the transition. I remember this when, for Eagles fans, you knew that Donovan's time was coming to an end. You knew that Randall's time was coming to an end. You knew that Jaworski's time was coming to an end. If you're a 49ers fan, you get blessed because you go Montana to Young, but you also knew their time was coming to an end. Montana, Young, and back and forth, and Young waiting in the wings, and Montana getting hurt, and then flip-flopping. You don't want that for a franchise. Yeah, they were successful. 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks, 2 all-time great quarterbacks. But you want some stability. That's it. You want stability. If you don't have stability in your franchise, you are done. I don't care who you have under center. I don't care both lines of scrimmage. I don't care who the hell's on the coaching. Stability means from the top to the bottom, right? The ownership gets it. And Mara right now, he's just not a great owner. He's just not. He isn't. And I think a lot of the anger from the fan base is also, and should be, and rightfully so, deservingly so, directed at John Mara too. I mean, there were some contracts, and I pulled them up, that just made absolutely no sense. Look, the GM basically says, let's make this move, but it's the owner's money. It's the owner's money. And some of these contracts are just, they're embarrassing what the Giants have done over the last several years. And I got news for you. It ain't new in the NFL. It's not new. We've seen this before, where GMs and owners, it doesn't align. And if you take anything away from what we talked about today, if there's a disconnect, if we're not on the same page, then I got honest, man, you're not going to win. And I think that's the case. And I think it's pretty evident and prevalent with the Giants. They're not all on the same page. They're just not. Let me see. Can we get final word in? Who wants to get a final word in here? We want to go back to Will. We got Mike in Ohio. We got Matt again with a Seattle Seahawks take. No, thank you. Save that for later in the week, brother. Got some good comments coming in today. Q, what do you think? Okay, Ann chimes in. Q, what do you think the last straw was for Dable and the Giant brass to decide that's it for Russell Wilson? It's the red zone opportunity. That was it. I mean, that was it. That was it. And listen, I believe Russell Wilson is a Hall of Fame quarterback. Now, if Malcolm Butler doesn't make that pick, people will argue the call. And I've heard a lot of people say, great call, horrible execution, whatever. I would have ran the football with the beast. You're talking about a quarterback that wins 2 Super Bowls. Hard to keep him out, right? But it's over for Russell Wilson. It's over for Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson throws for 450 yards, and I came on the air and said, relax, relax. He's going to get benched. I would still bench him, trade him to Cincinnati when Burrow gets hurt, start Dart. And I got annihilated because it talked more about the Dallas Cowboys, but fans didn't want to see that. All they saw was the moon ball, 450 yards, a couple touchdowns. Dallas secondary stinks. You should move the ball against the Dallas Cowboys, period. But the quarterback is washed. And once in a while, a quarterback who's cooked, who's washed, who's done, will give you a glimpse, a flash of what they were. And the truth is somewhere in between. You're not going to get that consistently. Russell Wilson wasn't going to give you those efforts for 17 weeks. Russell Wilson was more aligned to what we saw the other night, what we saw in Washington, 18 of 36, $168, maybe a touchdown, definitely a pick. That's who he is right now. You're airmailing in on 4th down. I mean, come on. It was time for a change. And you don't go to Winston because every time you bring in Dart, it's cheers, and then Dart comes off, it's boos. And that's not fair to Jameis Winston. That's not fair to Jackson Dart. And we know about feelings, right? F feelings, but at the end of the day, it's a business. Jackson Dart at this point should be able to spark this offense a little bit. They should give the fan base an semblance of hope. You weren't going to get that. It'll be fun with Jameis Winston throwing picks and throwing the ball down the field, but frustrating. Then you call for Jackson Dart in 3 more weeks. You weren't going to win with Russell Wilson. You weren't going to win with Jameis Winston. And you're probably not going to win games with Jackson Dart, but that's not why he's playing. You want to see if you have a franchise quarterback. That's it. That's all it is. That's it. That's it. That's it. Man chimes in, and it's 6 o'clock straight up. I echo those sentiments. The bunker is in for a rude awakening against Tampa Bay, and we'll talk about that later on in the week. All right, good stuff from Costco, also Lloyd Vance. You guys are unbelievable, hanging out for 2 hours. I appreciate it greatly. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Rich Q, Rich Quinones. Follow me on X and Twitter, and of course on IG at Rich Q, TikTok, Rich Q on the mic. Thursday edition. We don't believe in banker hours. We'll talk to you on Thursday. We might come on at 4 again. We will certainly be on at 5 again, and we'll set you up for a big football Friday. We'll preview Thursday Night Football, talk a little baseball tomorrow as well. But you guys have a wonderful Sports Wednesday, a Woosah Wednesday edition of On Q. You guys only got under my skin a couple times, but always appreciate nothing but love for you guys. As always, I'm Rich Quinones. Have a good Sports Wednesday. Be safe, be sound. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Hasta luego, mi tío.